Podcast City Network.
This is Final Score, your number one podcast for sports news. Here are your hosts, Chris and Craig.
Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting episode of Final Score, episode 99. That's right, we are to episode 99, which means 100 will be coming to you live next week on April 4th. Going to be a crazy time, and we got a lot of things that are going to be happening in the lead up to episode 100. But before we can even get to that, we do have episode 99. So make sure that if you're going to watch this, you have to hit the like and share button for us. As you can see, like button's right down there. Just go ahead, hit that little reaction, give it a love, give it a cares. We care about you. Would be awesome. And then you can hit the share button right over here. Hit that share button. That way you can help Final Score get out there even more and help share episode 99 so people can see it, because it's going to be a really great episode. And I can't do it without the man, the myth, the legend himself. Craig, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. How are you doing today?
Oh, hanging in there, man. It's been been a rough morning, but hey, we're here. So that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a great episode lined up talking some college basketball, NBA trade deadline, some other news and notes as well from the world of sports. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Look forward to it.
Oh, yeah, going to be a lot of great stuff going on, but you got to make sure that if you're going to keep up on all things Final Score, that you have to follow us on social media at PCN Final Score on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. Go on there and hit that like and follow button. That way you can make sure you can check mark for the notifications and make sure you find out when we go live or when we post anything. Even today's 3/28, happy sucks to be you Atlanta Falcons Day. So, it's really great stuff going on. So, which I was so happy I got that up right on the Final Score Facebook page right before we went live, and I was just like, yes, can still stab at the Falcons. But anyways, it's always fun. But like you had said, though, we got a lot to talk about on the show, including March Madness, because man, March Madness has been like just pure insanity so far, and I'm honestly really happy to see what we've seen, because it's been completely unpredictable. What are your thoughts on it so far?
Well, it's been the year of the upset. I mean, we saw in some of the brackets, we still have double-digit seeds that are alive and well. One being Oregon State. They took down an 8-seed Loyola Chicago in the Midwest region. So they are moving on in the Pac-12. But I'm really just kind of speaking of them. I'm a little surprised that the Pac-12, they didn't have very many teams make it into the tournament, but they've got what I counted was 4 teams. They have 4 teams in the Sweet 16, and the Big Ten, which had 9 teams coming into the tournament, supposedly the best conference in college basketball. Michigan's the only team left. So it's wild that it just goes to show that sometimes it's better to be in a conference that isn't as top heavy or as dominant, so to speak, as like the Big Ten, because all those Big Ten teams, yes, they were highly ranked throughout the year, but they all beat up on each other. And by the time they got to the tournament, they limped in, or they basically didn't come to play when they were supposed to. Like, this is when it matters. And teams like Ohio State and Purdue and Illinois, all teams going down very early in the tournament, all those teams. Michigan State was out in the first 4 against UCLA, who's still in it as of today. But the Pac-12, like, way to go, Pac-12, representing their conference very well. They have Oregon State in, like I mentioned. They've got potentially 2 other teams, because USC and Oregon are playing each other. We'll show you that in a second. And then UCLA plays tonight as well. But yeah, Pac-12, kudos to them. Some of the top seeds, or some of the I should say the underdog seeds, did go down. We had Syracuse went down to Houston. They got destroyed by Houston. That was 62-46 outcome there. I was watching that. I was watching a little bit of the beginning of that game. I was watching quite a few things at once last night. I was watching a little bit of that game, and Syracuse did not look very good. But credit Houston's defense; they had a good game plan. They had a week basically to prepare for Syracuse. That's the thing about Syracuse in the tournament. If you have only like a day or so turnaround, it's difficult to plan for them because you don't play people that play in a 2-3 zone very often throughout the year. So
Very
it's
true.
not a whole lot of time to plan against a team like that, and because of how well they shoot the three. But Houston had a week to prepare. It comes out they did what they needed to do. I'm really the last game I'll talk about, and then I want to hear your thoughts on the tournament. Arkansas and Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts was up 12 in the second half at one point, and Arkansas came storming back. Arkansas ends up taking that game 72-70, and I would have loved to see a 15 seed make the Elite Eight. We've never seen that before. There's only been 2 seeds that ever make the Sweet 16, one being Florida Gulf Coast a couple of years ago. And, you really wanted to hope that, but, Oral goes down. So.
And it happens, man. And it was crazy because they had a chance right there at the end with a last-second buzzer beater, and they missed the buzzer beater and, ended up, having to have their storybook season come to an end. So it's real crazy looking at it. I'm going to go ahead right now, though, and throw up the scores for the games that we did have yesterday. But it's real crazy. You're looking at some of these games you saw, like with Oral Roberts and Arkansas was really good. But you mentioned Syracuse and Houston. Syracuse somehow has been pushing real deep into this when they were expected to be ousted pretty early on, but then get dominated by Houston. But you also look at that Loyola College, Loyola Chicago and Oregon State. That game, I really thought Loyola Chicago could have brought a lot more in that game. But I feel like it's been kind of shows what this tournament has really been this year. I feel like where everything has been, like you said, it's definitely been a tournament of upsets, but you see teams get upsets, they get on a little bit of a roll, and then they get ousted themselves. So it's pretty crazy to see how this has really gone forward, because look, you saw 12 just be at an 8, and now we're talking Sweet 16. So it's crazy to see that now you're going to have a number 12 seed sitting in the Elite 8, and with how all this is going, man, it's just crazy. It's been really crazy. But at the same time, it's been extremely exciting because, when would Oral Roberts ever be in a position really to truly be in the Sweet 16 to be able to get the kind of attention that they're getting, along with Loyola Chicago, and the kind of attention they're getting. It's really good for those schools and those programs. But, man, it's been a really wild tournament.
Yeah, and one of the teams that, kind of touching on a little bit here is the lowest seed that's still left, being Oregon State. Fun fact: they were actually picked last in the conference for this year in the preseason. They were picked last. They did just kind of sneak in, and take away, one of those bids, winning the Pac-12 tournament, and you see what kind of run they can get on. They have a good defense, though. You can kind of, if you've watched the games, you can kind of see that they fly around there on defense, and they're playing well at the right time, which is what you want. Absolutely. In the NCAA tournament. You want to be rolling at the right time. You don't necessarily want to be the best team coming in. You want to be the team that's hot right when you come in the tournament, and Oregon State has been.
Absolutely. And, that's a big thing, is getting hot at the right time, because that can lead to all kinds of crazy things happening. And we've seen that happen in all different sports, where just get on that hot run, give it to the hot hand, whatever the case may be. And next thing you know, hey, you're tasting gold, baby. So, any number of things can happen. But we still do have a number of games that are going to be happening today. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the games that are on slate for today in the West region, we have top seeded Gonzaga, one of the heavy favorites in this tournament. They're going up against 5 seed Creighton. That's going to be the first game today at 2:10 on CBS. And then the other game in that West region is 2 Pac-12 teams matching up, 6 and 7 seeded USC versus Oregon, 9:45 p.m. on TBS tonight. In the East region, top seeded Michigan going up against 4-seeded Florida State at 5 p.m. on CBS. And the number 2 seed Alabama takes on the 11 seed UCLA, 7:15 on TBS. These games, this is going to be just as exciting. I don't think you're going to see too many Houston-Syracuse type games, but I think you're definitely going to see how the other games went. So one game we didn't even talk about, Baylor and Villanova. Villanova was up early on Baylor. Baylor, being one of the better teams in the country, did come back and kind of take the lead and kind of take hold of the game in the second half. But I expect all those games to be more like that today. Gonzaga-Creighton, I think that's going to be fairly close early. But Gonzaga is just really good. They're just one of the best teams in the country. I really want to see the 6-7 matchup, the USC and Oregon matchup. I think that's going to be a fantastic game. Those two teams, they play each other in conference. They're very familiar with each other.
Oh yeah.
That's going to be an interesting game to watch. Michigan, Florida State's going to be a fun one too. If you watched the last round, Michigan versus LSU, I think it's going to be similar to that game. Michigan's going to get all they can handle from Florida State. Florida State plays they play that style, that brand of basketball that is going to match up well with Michigan. Michigan's still missing Isaiah Livers. He's not coming back. They have looked shaky at times without Livers in the lineup. So it's really going to be on guys that they don't count on very much. Zeb Jackson had a big first-round game. Didn't really play in the second round.
Right.
That's going to be – I think he's going to have to – if he does play, he's going to have to be very effective in the minutes he does play. But they're going to need big play out of guys like Hunter Dickinson and Eli Brooks and those guys gonna have to be able to play defense and knock down shots consistently. If they have scares like they did against UCLA, Florida State's a little bit of a better team. You gotta watch out. Bama, UCLA. I'm even surprised UCLA made it this far. I did not have them getting this far, but I did have. I think it was at Alabama or something going in like the Elite Eight or going down in this round or something like that. But Alabama, give them a lot of credit. They've been a pretty good team all year. They have had their ups and downs, but this is going to be an interesting matchup. I haven't been able to dive too deep into that matchup, but I know the rest of the games are definitely going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And it's going to be really exciting to see how they're going to work out. When it comes to Gonzaga, to me, is the team really to beat. I think Michigan could be fouled up easily in this and end up being another number one to go down. But I feel like this is Gonzaga's tournament at this point. It's theirs to lose. But with how things have gone, who knows? So a lot of things can happen. Even Alabama, I think, it definitely can make a strong run. I know you said something about them possibly being out in the Elite Eight, but at the end of the day, I think they could also make a strong run. But we have people that are trying to make strong runs in the Final Score Bracket Challenge. What updates do we have on that?
Yeah, so we're going to be showing you the top 11. We have a two-way tie right now in the top spot, both having 500 points each.
Ooh, I love it. It's exciting.
Yeah, but their maxes are a little low. You can see that if you show that graphic there, they got.
Oh yeah, I see
the maxes. Yeah, the maxes are at 1260. So there's the people at 3 and 4 actually have a better chance of winning out right now. Have the top overall. Fab 5 Nookie. That's a great name. I love that.
Fab 5 Nookie. I love it.
Has only down 30 points, but has the chance to pull ahead with a better max score than each of the top two teams. So you can see we got a three-way tie for 4th, and then we go down 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So it's definitely been a very good bracket challenge. These are updated as of this morning, as of a few minutes ago. So these are the most up-to-date that we have at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely good luck to everybody left. Those top two spots, so look like they're up for grabs, it looks like. So who knows? It's pretty crazy when you look at these challenges and how they work out. But I can tell you right now, a lot of great prizes are going to be associated with this. Did we ever make a final decision on what we're doing with that?
Yeah, I'll announce it I'll announce it next week.
Yes, so we'll announce it next week. They're a part of episode 100 and all the craziness and festivities we're going to be having with that. It's going to be, God, I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. So much going to be announced over the course of the next week. But definitely make sure that if you're in this bracket challenge, keep on pushing. There's so much awesomeness here, man. But anything can happen. Literally at this point, anything can happen. Like you had mentioned, the max for our top two teams right now, definitely not that high. Definitely could be beat. So we'll see how this works out, and we'll definitely give you an update next week, April 4th, on episode 100. But nothing I guess we got to kind of talk about real quick is, where am I at here? I'm all over the place. Is that there's been some shakeups already happening in college basketball. Obviously, once you see teams start falling out of the wayside, whether it be with from the tournaments or whether they didn't make it all together, you start seeing teams start making these moves. And we've seen a number of moves recently. What do we got?
Well, one of the big stories in college basketball right now is Texas head coach Shaka Smart has decided to leave the university and become the head coach at Marquette. Now, as of this morning, I've been trying to follow this story very closely. I have not seen any official word that he is going to be the head coach of Marquette, but he's already made that move to leave Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably wondering, why would someone want to leave a big school like Texas to go to Marquette? This is actually a very smart move by Shaka Smart. Not only, yes, you're leaving Texas, one of the best and biggest schools as far as athletic departments are concerned and how much money is thrown into it, but Shaka Smart was on the hot seat going into this year. And yes, it was COVID kind of saved him last year, and they had a really good season, but they got bounced in the first round by a 14 seed when they were expecting to have a deep run in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So even if he decided to stay, like making the tournament, probably saved his job for this year. But I wouldn't be surprised that if he stayed at Texas and had a mediocre year or something not up to their par, he would have been fired. And instead, it's much easier to get a job when you still are in good terms with another job instead of getting fired from the previous one.
That is a good point.
So it was great. I think it was a great idea for the longevity of his coaching career, because now not only does he go, Marquette is a basketball school. They're in the Big East, which I think is a little bit better for Shaka's style and his coaching and recruiting style, but he's also a native of Wisconsin. Like this, it's a homecoming for him. But with those big time jobs in like the Big 10 or the Big 12 or the Pac-12, those conferences, there's a lot of high expectations. So if you're not meeting those, obviously you're going to be on the hot seat sooner rather than you would at a smaller school where they'll give you a little bit more of a rope to work with.
Absolutely.
So I think this is a really good idea for Shaka Smart to leave and head to Marquette. I think it's going to be a good matchup. You could see the way he recruits, the way his coaches, love playing for him. In the Big East, it's a good matchup. I think they'll be, they'll kind of bring Marquette back to where they were. They had a pretty rough year this year, which is why they decided to part ways with Steve Wojciechowski, who was their head coach. But really now the question is, who's Texas going to target? There's a few people that are on the list, and one of them is Mark Turgeon. So Mark Turgeon's a head coach at Maryland. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Oklahoma. I got it mixed up. Chris Beard from Texas Tech is the top candidate here, which I would be really surprised if he actually decides to go from Texas Tech to Texas. Not only is it kind of like a mini conference rival, but he's had a lot of success at Texas Tech. But Texas does have a lot of money. They got a lot of money to throw at them. They do have, like I said, one of the biggest money-making athletic departments in the country in all of college sports. They're right up there with the Michigans and the USCs of the world. So that's going to be interesting. There's a few other names thrown out. Rick Pitino's already said that he's good at Iona, but it's Rick Pitino. If they throw the Texas job at him, he's going to leave.
Yeah, I don't see him trying to stay and trying to stick it out in Iona rather than go to Texas. Come on.
But part of the reason why Rick Pitino went to Iona, he's an East Coast guy. I could see him staying potentially just because he's getting older. He doesn't want to have all those scandals anymore.
That's true.
It's a lot easier to cover up a scandal at Iona than it is at another school where you're in scrutiny all the time.
Oh, you're definitely
not
lying.
Yeah. There's a few names that are being thrown out there. The other one is Eric Musselman of Arkansas, who's still in the tournament. That would be an interesting hire, I think, if he decides to leave Arkansas and go to Texas. A few other smaller mid-major coaches, but that'll be interesting to see if Chris Beard's the big name that everybody's been talking about. Is Chris Beard going to be the target by Texas? So we'll have to see what happens.
Definitely. And a lot could happen with that entire situation, and we'll definitely keep tabs on that here at Final Score. But also, we had a big happening with the Oklahoma Sooners head coach, Lon Kruger, who has decided to retire after 10 seasons, man. This is some big news. What do you think?
Yeah, he retired a little bit about a week ago, and was there for 10 years, one of only a handful of head coaches that have taken 5 different programs to the NCAA tournament. So he's had success everywhere he goes. But now this is the question of who's going to take over this. I have not seen a whole lot of chatter about who is going to take over at Oklahoma. But every hire that their AD has done since he started in 1989 has been a quote-unquote successful hire. So clearly knows to find the best fit for their program.
Right.
And for their school. But this is the one where I mentioned Mark Turgeon earlier. He's connected to this job. That's the one that he's really, because he's been he's from that area. Turgeon is from Kansas and played for the Jayhawks in the 80s. But he's from that kind of area. Other assistants are kind of being thrown out there. One of them is taken off the board. Craig Smith from Utah State is off the board because he's actually left Utah State to go to Utah, in-state rival, which is pretty wild. Yeah, in-state rival. But Paul Mills, the Oral Roberts coach, is a little bit of a stretch, but because of their success that they've had, not necessarily a bad hire. And Oral Roberts was a assistant under Scott Drew at Baylor up until a couple years ago. So this was his first head coaching job and already taking his team to the Sweet 16 as a big underdog. So that might be a name to look at as well for Oklahoma.
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of different directions Oklahoma could go. Like you said, with the success of some of these smaller programs. And honestly, when you're looking at the entire upset and everything that's been happening with the tournament itself, a lot of teams are getting a lot more exposure. Coaches are getting out there a little bit more. So really, we could see a crazy carousel when things actually get going for some of these positions. So, man, it could be real crazy, man. It could be really, really crazy. But you know what else is crazy? That's right. PCN Shop and all the great things that it has to offer. What can you tell us about that?
At the PCN Shop, we've got what you need, whether you need a neck gaiter to help protect you from COVID-19, a mug for your morning coffee, or you just want a t-shirt to look good, we've got you covered. You can get the latest apparel and gear for all of your favorite podcasts on Podcast City Network and from the network itself. Just head to podcastcity.net/shop and check out the lineup while you're there. You already kind of referenced to it a little bit. We have our Boycott the College Football Playoff t-shirt that's your baby. You love it to death.
I do.
You love it.
Screw the NCAA. But, I got other things I love. I got nice neck gaiters, and, I also got this year one t-shirt, all of which is available on the PCN Shop. So,
Absolutely. I'm
shameless
sporting
plugs.
my current version of the Final Score at the moment. And, you can take a picture with any of that gear. You can tag Final Score on social media. You can use the different hashtags, down with CFP for the college football playoff. You can use hashtag Final Score, hashtag PCN, and we will more than likely you'll see it on the show. You'll see your mug on the show.
Or if you're wearing a net gator, we'll see half your mug. Either way, it works.
This is true.
But, we love it, and we got so much great stuff on there. I think we're almost over 100 different items on the store. So definitely something for everybody. Go on there and find what you like. Put that order in and get it soon. And it's great. It's a turnaround time. And we're actually going to advertise this because I don't think we've ever advertised this before. The turnaround time on our merch has been absolutely amazing. Anything that we've had ordered usually is there within less than 2 weeks. So I'm telling you, if you're trying to get something, we're not Amazon, but hey, you'll get it quick. So
it's great material too. Like these are this is a Gildan shirt. It's really thin, breathable. Especially here in Florida, it's already starting to get like 1,000 degrees. So
yes.
you want those shirts that are breathable and they're not just
killing you.
Really heavy t-shirts. Heavy cotton t-shirts.
Yeah.
We can't do those here in Florida. So
no, that's like
really great
wearing
material.
an oven. Yeah, it's like wearing an oven when you wear those thick shirts, man. You can't do that, especially because I like to wear black and it's just like a double oven, so can't be doing all that. But we are doing some NBA action because there was a huge amount of moves at the NBA trade deadline. And I'm sorry, Magic fans. I have to say this. I know Craig is probably going to say something in contrary to what I'm going to say, but the Magic just imploded our team. Yes, we still have some young talent, but we just lost pretty much the main core of our starting five in Vucevic and Aaron Gordon. It's crazy that this happened, but I've tried to come around to the fact that maybe this was needed. I was calling for Aaron Gordon to be gone years ago. Vuce, though, I think we should have kept. But, it is what it is. I'm too emotionally distraught. Craig, I'm going to throw it to you.
Well, I want to, I want to dive into this a little bit because
you're gonna do this to me.
So here's my question. I'm agreeing with you on. I can agree with you on certain things, but we keep Vucevic. Okay, what?
Gotta have something to build around, man. The thing is, I like having nice young players, which we have obviously a buttload of them now. I think honestly we might be one of the youngest rotations at this point now in the NBA. But something I look at with this is that Vuce was our only reliable, consistent player in any kind of way. And I feel that when you have guys like Aaron Gordon and the like around him that aren't able to get the job done, Evan Fournier, I love Evan Fournier, but he was inconsistent. And you run into those kind of issues where you need to move those players instead of holding on to them. The Orlando Magic has been notorious for moving on from good players. However, we always have trouble holding on to bad players. So I'm not saying that Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier were bad. It's just you have to have consistency in the NBA to find any true success. Look at LeBron James. No matter where he's gone, what has he always had? Consistency. And that's something that you have to have. Vuce, I felt like, was a guy that the Magic truly could have built around if they really had moved these other core players out of the way. Because I've been calling for Aaron Gordon to be moved, I think, for the past 3 or 4 years. And they haven't. And now they have, but now we're in a position where there's not really, I feel, a good, strong, consistent veteran player that's able to be that consistent. Hey, if we feed this guy the ball, we know he's going to do something with it. We don't have that anymore.
Let me ask you this then. If in the fact that Vucevic is 30 years old, he's been with the team for 9 seasons, correct? I believe.
Yep.
He started when he was 21.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't built around him in 9 seasons? What are you going to do?
That's part of the Magic's problem.
So and I'm not blaming the players for this part.
Oh, definitely.
This is clearly,
definitely not.
Which is why they made a move in the front office in the last couple of years. Like, that was much needed. But here's my problem with that argument. I understand Vucevic, rightfully so. Nikola Vucevic is one of the best 3 to 4 players in Magic history.
Yes.
That is undoubtedly true. Anybody that you talk to around the Orlando Magic, on and off the court, he's one of the best representatives on and off the court of Magic basketball. It is very hard to lose that type of a player.
Yes.
That I understand. I feel for Magic Twitter. I was deep in the rabbit hole of Magic Twitter on trade deadline, trying to have conversations with people. But he's 30 years old. You've had your chance to build around this team, and you see their ceiling is a first-round playoff exit. This team, yeah, but you're not going to be able to get franchise players like that. Players are not going to. It didn't help that they made bad free agent pickups. Al Farouk Aminu, he was part of the trade that took him and Vucevic to Chicago. Needed to get rid of him. But what I'm saying is that this team, they've had a chance to show what they can do with this roster, and it didn't work. Yes, you made the playoffs. We almost beat Toronto 1 year, 2 years ago.
Almost.
But that was it. Yeah, almost. But that's the ceiling of this team. Unfortunately, this team has been caught in limbo. They don't know what they want to do. Do they want to have young players to like getting Jonathan Isaac? You draft a guy who's a project. Aaron Gordon, raw talent, could dunk, raw project. But they bring those types of players in. Fournier's having a career year, which is great. I think they kind of screwed the pooch on that deal with the Celtics.
A little bit, yeah.
We'll kind of talk about the details of that one, but I thought it was time to blow this team up last year. You saw that they are not going to make in the NBA. Are you going to make the conference finals or not? Like that's your benchmark. Until LeBron retires, in the East, you're not going to beat him. So your championship hopes are already dashed. And the team, the ownership hasn't put people in positions that say, hey, we want to put a winner on the court. They're not really concerned with that, which also hurts. But this team went as far as they could go. Like, what more do you want out of them? The front office is not putting other veteran players. Veteran players don't want to play with Aaron Gordon. I don't give a shit how the NBA analysts are like, oh, the Denver Nuggets went and got Aaron Gordon. This is the greatest trade move that they could have made this year.
No.
Yeah, when Aaron Gordon gives you one game in 15, okay, let's see what the fan bases say then. Like, Aaron Gordon is not a number one guy.
No, he's not.
He did not live up to his number 4 pick potential. Like, let's just throw that out there.
Yeah, he's a bust.
In my opinion, I wouldn't say he's a bust, but he's definitely did not live up to that number 4 billing. But I went through and looked at that whole draft class. Outside of Joel Embiid, the whole class was a fucking bust. Like, the whole draft was a bust.
It really was.
Like, nobody was any good out of that draft. Like, it didn't really.
And honestly,
the draft was terrible.
I mean, even with Joel Embiid, even him, like, he's only been coming on recently. So it's looking at it, it's crazy when you look at that entire draft class and how bad it was. Aaron Gordon, the reason I say he's a bust, you're a top 5 pick and you can't make something happen in the time you've had in Orlando, which, I mean, I know Orlando is the way they are when it comes to their roster and the front office, and it's obviously why they've made changes, but there's definitely been plenty of potential there. There's definitely been some decent coaches there. There's staying pieces that have been in place for them to have a lot better than, say, 25 wins in a season or, say, 35 wins in a season. Like, there's no reason with the pieces they've had and the coaching they've had that they should only be doing that. I know we're a far cry from the Dwight Howard days when we made the NBA Finals and we were playing the Lakers and inevitably lost that series 4-1, but at the end of the day, the whole franchise has been shell shocked since then, and this is what it's led to.
So think of it this way: the core players the Magic had 50-win seasons. They've only had a couple of winning seasons, which is 41-41. That's averaged 50 or 500. Also, think of the teams that you just mentioned. The championship caliber teams that the Magic have had, they've had franchise-changing players that were drafted in the top 5 or better. Shaq, Dwight Howard, even Penny, okay? Aaron Gordon was a top 5 draft pick and was clearly not on that level. Like, that to me is a complete miss. If you are drafted in the top 5 to a franchise, you are expected to be the franchise-changing type player, and Aaron Gordon was not that. I hope he's more consistent in Denver than he was in Orlando because he was really inconsistent, which is the problem from this team. Is they play good defense because you've got those guys around it, you got that system around, but even with Vucevic, who's considered a great offensive player, Fournier, who when he's on, he's a really good offensive player.
Oh, and quick, before Evan Fournier got traded, he nailed a buzzer beater to beat a team literally the day before he got traded. Just saying.
It's just classic Evan Fournier fashion. It's a great way for him to go out. He's been a great person for the Orlando Magic franchise as well. Let's put that out there too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But he's been a great ambassador for the team. But you got to look at, if you're concerned about on the court, like, this team was not doing it. Like, their ceiling was 42, 43 wins, which is, if that's your ceiling, you need to raise your expectations. Like,
oh yeah,
that's how I look at it.
And we haven't had a 50-win season in 10 years, literally 10 years. So
right.
It's crazy. It's crazy to see what's happened. But there's a lot to this, though. And the biggest thing is that the Magic got something they haven't gotten a whole lot of, and that's a lot of draft capital. Because, to be honest, they've been screwed out of the first pick in the draft so many times over the past 10 years, it's not even funny. A lot of people feel really bad for the Magic when it comes to their draft woes. But I feel like they're trying to correct their own story right now, especially when you look at what they've been able to get in return. Now, like you had mentioned with the Celtics trade, that one was a little interesting. But with these other two, especially when you look at the Vooch trade, they send Vooch and Aminu to Chicago for Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and 2 future first-round picks with what I guess it was a 2021 top 4 protected and a 2023. So definitely a lot going on here, and 2 first-round picks and 2 players is definitely not too bad of a swap. What are your thoughts on this one?
This one, I don't know how I feel about this one, because at first, when it first came out, I didn't expect Vooch to be the first one traded of the 3. Everyone was like, okay, they're going to trade Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll trade Fournier, but not Vucevic. They won't trade him.
Not Vooch.
And then it's like, to me, this is all these moves. This Vooch move was a little like of the 3, Aaron Gordon trade, in my opinion, was a great trade. The Fournier trade was not a good trade. This one's in the middle for me because, yes, you get 2 first-round picks. They're both protected. I didn't get protections for the second one, and they haven't really released that information yet.
Right.
But the first one's top 4 protected. Everyone's like, oh, why is it a protected pick? The Bulls have made so many trade deadline moves. They're one of the most active teams of this trade deadline this year. If they don't make the playoffs, it's a massive failure. Yes. So, like, it's like a 99% chance that the Magic are going to get this 2021 pick. Now, hell, personally, I hope that the Bulls miss the playoffs and get a number 5 pick so the Magic can get it. But that's just me. But, like, Vooch and Aminu, like, we needed to get rid of Al-Farouq Aminu. I think it was a terrible signing to begin with. He's a one-dimensional player that in the NBA in today's world, you can't have guys that play on the wing that are only one-dimensional. And he has little to no offensive game. Like, that needed to go. I'm glad he got sent with it. But Vooch to Chicago, of all places, I thought would be like, Boston was a big one. I thought maybe like a Portland or something, like some team that's making a massive push for the postseason. But Chicago's got like 19 wins. Like they're like 8 or 9 in the standings. Like they're not in that echelon. So I was a little surprised. Right. But what I do like out of this, yes, they got 2 first-round picks. I think that is great value for Vucevic. And you got 2 players, one being Wendell Carter Jr. He's still only 21 years old. He hasn't been doing great in Chicago, but I think he could really use the change of scenery. Just that he's a young big man. I think the change of scenery could be really good. He'll have much more opportunity to kind of show his game, expand his game. But the other part of this is Otto Porter Jr.
Right.
The only reason I like this move for Otto Porter is he's got a $28.4 million cap hit, but it expires at the end of the season. He's an expiring deal. They can let him walk. Like, they can just sit him at the end of the bench, let him walk. You know, you've freed up $28 million in cap room, and that's fantastic. Because at this point, that's really all you're going to be doing. So I like this trade. I don't love it, but I like the trade because you got 2 first-round picks that are probably going to be borderline lottery picks, which is fine. You can still get good players at that spot in the draft.
Absolutely. Absolutely, they can. And honestly, even with the Otto deal, Otto could at least help for the time being, and then ship him out at the end of the season. Magic let him walk, and that's something that they won't have to deal with come that time and free up all that space. So I like the fact of this trade just because of the fact they got the 2 first-round picks, and like you said, those could be borderline lottery picks. So if you're building towards the future, that's what they need is good draft capital, or at least some bargaining chips if they were to try and make a move for someone else, and that's something to kind of keep in mind with this as well. But with the Aaron Gordon trade, you saw him get traded to Denver for Gary Harris, R.J. Hampton, and a 2025 first-round pick that's top 5 protected. It's definitely, I think Orlando made out in this deal. What do you think about it?
I love this deal for Orlando. The first-round pick, top 5 protected, but again, the Nuggets are not going to be in the lottery. They're one of the best. They've been one of the best teams in the Western Conference for the last couple of years. This is going to be a bottom-end first-round pick, but that's okay because if you're expecting to get a top 10 type pick for Vucevic and Aaron Gordon and or either one, you're completely delusional as a Magic fan because you're not a team like the Timberwolves are not going to go, you know what? Let's trade our potential top 5 pick to the Magic to get Aaron Gordon. Like that's because they're not even in a position to make the playoffs. So why would they do something like that? That doesn't make sense. I do really like getting RJ Hampton. He's got he's got some of the best upside. He's a rookie. So I mean, you got him along with Cole Anthony. Like that 1-2 punch could be fantastic. I really like that. And Gary Harris is only 26 years old. He's a tremendous defender, but he can still knock down shots too. So I really like all this in general for Aaron Gordon. But yeah, like I said about Aaron Gordon, he's still only 25. He's been in the league for quite a few years already. But I hope he lives up to that potential. He's not. But the problem is, like in Orlando, he was expected to be the number 1 guy. You're drafted top 5. You're supposed to be the man. But when he goes to Denver, he's only going to be option number 2, 3. Like he's not even going to be the first or second option. That's actually good for him because he can play off of screen and rolls, which is another problem the Magic have. They haven't had a good point guard in years. Yeah. He can play off that screen and roll, the screen and pop. He can get those he's a great defender, and he can knock down shots. He was about 30%, 34% 3-point shooting this year, which is much better than what he's shot in the past. Which it's a good value for the Magic. I like it. I really like the trade.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like you said, with Aaron Gordon being the second, third, man in that offensive rotation, really not having to be relied on as that number 1 scorer or being the guy, I think it definitely will help his career, especially now that he's going to be able to have a lot of pressure taken off him. But I think it works for the Magic as well, and we'll definitely see how it works out. This is one, like I said, I've been calling for a long time. Aaron Gordon needed to be moved, so it's finally awesome to see it happen. But I definitely got a buddy of mine. I think I'm going to buy his jersey off him now, though, but we'll see. But the Evan Fournier trade is an interesting one. He gets traded to the Boston Celtics for 2 future second-round picks and a $17 million trade exception. What are your thoughts on this?
This is a real head-scratcher. I know the Boston Celtics have been in conversation for all 3 of the players that we just mentioned, Aaron Gordon, Vucevic, and Evan Fournier. For the Boston Celtics, I like this trade. Like, they made out in this trade because you get a guy who, again, doesn't have to be the first, second option. He's going to be that probably third option off the bench. He's going to be probably in a 6-man role. But if he plays as well the rest of the season as he has already, it was a career high 19 points per game, I think, this year so far. It's a really good value. Is it going to put Boston back in the championship conversation? Probably not. But it's another outlet on offense that they can utilize. Now for the Magic, you're not going to get a first-round pick out of this. Let's pump the brakes. Evan Fournier is not worth a first-round pick. Yep. 2 future second-round picks, okay, maybe. But it's the trade exception that really makes me head scratch, because the Celtics have a lot of trade exceptions. So they basically used part of that to get Fournier. So that means the trade exception goes to the Magic. But I did a little digging about trade exemptions because I'm not very well versed in them. But basically, you have a calendar year to use this trade exemption, and the trade exemptions are used if you go over the cap. So if you want to get a guy so say for instance, if they're over the cap, they could get a guy who's at like $17 million and use this trade exemption to a team, and they would get that trade exemption. So basically, you just kind of move it around.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really crazy. It's really just mind-boggling to me why they would use and acquire a trade exemption when you're in clearly no position to go over the cap anytime soon. Like you're blowing the team up to go back to basics and get a bunch of basically low-paid guys and rookies and kind of build up the roster from there. You're not trying to go out and make a bunch of big free agent splashes, so why do you need a $17 million trade exemption? They're not going to use it. Maybe they'll trade it for an expiring contract next year or something. I don't know, but that one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be able to try and use it in that manner and try and apply an exception. So, I mean, maybe there's something they have up their sleeve that we don't know about that maybe we'll tie in the next year, or just using it as a bargaining chip. Who knows? The Celtics usually are kind of weird with how they approach a lot of their free agent moves and a lot of their signings and trades anyway. So, surprised, not surprised, I guess. But
but for the Magic, I will say, I mentioned they haven't had a direction for like 4 or 5 years because they don't know what they want to do. They want to draft. Do they want to draft young raw players that they can build up? Oh wait, no, I think we want to. No, we barely made the playoffs. We want to make a push. No, we're not doing well. Let's go back this way. They have a clear direction. They're going to rebuild the team through the draft, and that's like, I love that. I love that you have a clear direction. It's either are you in or are you out. They decided, hey, we're not going to make a playoff push. We do need to rebuild this roster. Now I'm a little worried though. The keys to the kingdom are in the hands of often injured Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz. I'm a little worried. I think if Jonathan Isaac keeps getting himself injured, he's got to go too because he hasn't done anything.
Yeah,
he's done nothing.
And that's something I think that also definitely needs to be looked at because, like you said, he really hasn't done anything. So injury prone and spends more time on the bench. But I feel like they're trying to look at some of this younger talent that they have out there. You still got guys like Mobamba and then of course Kiki and all that. So there's a lot that goes on with this. So we'll see how it works out.
I am excited to watch Chuma Okeke and see how he's been playing. I want to see Mo Bamba play a little bit. I thought that was a head scratcher of a draft anyway, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of Mo Bamba's game, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I'm actually a little excited to be able to watch. I know this team's gonna suck the second half of the season. You got to understand that if you're a Magic fan, they're gonna suck the second half of the season. They're in full-on tank mode. That's okay. They have a clear direction now. They got They have at least two first-round draft picks in 3 of the next 5 years.
But again, remember, it's the Orlando Magic front office using these picks, so they may or may not have a plan in place.
I am not going to put that. That's on the previous regime. That previous regime drafted Aaron Gordon. They made the moves that they made.
That's true.
They made the terrible signings that they made. I'm not putting that on this GM, on this regime. Not yet. Now, this right here, starting this offseason, that's going to be the big indicator is this franchise going to move forward in a big way? Because if they go out and make some head-scratching drafts that don't pan out right away, or if they go and make some big free agent signing for overpay for a guy, then we'll be like, oh, here we go. Yeah,
and that's the thing, too. You look at the Orlando Magic right now sitting 15-30, 15 wins. I mean, we might make it to 25 if we're lucky. So we'll see.
I'm not worried about that.
I'm just trying to set expectations for fans out there because, this is going to be like a few years ago before we could make playoffs. So I want to temper expectations.
I want to see this. I want to see this team really give a lot of minutes or a lot of opportunities to the young guys, to the Wendell Carters, to the Chuma Okikis, R.J. Hampton, Cole Anthony, like all the young guys that they want to develop and be the future of the franchise. Give them their opportunity to screw up. Go ahead and tank this year. Go ahead and tank and try to get a top 5 pick.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And we'll definitely see how it works out. But there's also a lot of other major trades that did happen in the NBA, including with the Miami Heat acquiring Victor Oladipo from Houston for, and I know I'm going to butcher this, Kolyaniki, or I don't know. You go ahead and shout that. Olynyk. Don't mind me. It's been a long night. Avery Bradley and a pick swap. So good move for the Heat.
That was the big one. I mean, Victor Oladipo was literally last minute at the buzzer trade from Houston. I like this trade because it gives Jimmy Butler another weapon. Olynyk, I was never a huge fan of Olynyk's game. Avery Bradley is only there for defense and he's a 3-and-D player, little undersized. I like Oladipo to be another option. I don't know if he's gonna. He would have to consistently start alongside Jimmy Butler, but I think Miami. This is Miami's way of making a push for the postseason, and I think it's a great pickup to get Oladipo, another scoring option that can help out the Miami Heat, who are really struggling on offense.
Absolutely. So it definitely could work out very well, especially like you said, it could be good support for Jimmy Butler having Oladipo there. But looking at the Clippers, they go ahead, get Rajon Rondo from the Atlanta Hawks for Lou Williams and 2 second-round picks. Definitely interesting, especially for the Clippers. You're still trying to make a push. Good move for the Clippers.
This is the second biggest trade outside of the Magic activity to me. This is really not going to make a lot of difference now. This is a playoff move. Like the Clippers are thinking in the playoffs. Rajon Rondo's been there, done that. If he can get along with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, this could be a very good pickup for the Clippers. Lou Williams is from the Atlanta area, from Georgia, so he gets to go home, play in front of his hometown fans. That's going to be – I was actually surprised. I forgot that Rajon Rondo played for the Hawks, to be honest with you. Forgot he played there. I honestly thought he was still playing with LeBron because he follows him around everywhere he goes now.
Yeah.
But yeah, Clippers getting Rajon Rondo, that's definitely a long-term playoff move. I like it, but we'll see if it pans out.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see how it pans out. Definitely be very interesting. But I have to agree. I think this is the Clippers definitely trying to make a playoff push kind of move here. So you get that kind of experience that Rajon Rondo's had in the playoffs, man. That's huge. But you also look at the Blazers who sent Gary Trent to the Raptors for Norman Powell, man. What do you think of that move?
I've been reading into this one because I haven't watched a whole lot of Raptors games this year, but Norman Powell is going to be kind of the third to the big three in Portland, alongside Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum. Norman Powell's been a really good consistent scorer. That's going to be another option for them. And the Blazers getting rid of Gary Trent was a little surprising, just because based on what I've been seeing and he's also had a pretty good breakout season. So him going to Toronto is only going to give him a little bit more opportunity to kind of keep improving his game this year and kind of up his averages. So I kind of like the move for both teams.
Absolutely. Definitely, I think, a good move for both. The Mavericks also were able to acquire J.J. Redick, the Duke three-point shooter from back in the day and former Orlando Magic player as well, too. So what do you think about J.J. Redick going to the Mavs, man?
J.J. Redick, I kind of laughed when I saw this trade because the Mavericks traded away Seth Curry, who's their knockdown three-point shooter, to get Josh Richardson, who does not have that three-point skill set. And then they go out in the trade deadline and pick up a knockdown three-point shooter in J.J. Redick. So it's like you kind of made a backwards move to come back laterally. So I was a little surprised at that, how that all played out. But they're trying to make a push for the playoffs. I like it because they need that extra firepower in the West. It's going to be very tough. It's just funny how that all played out. They traded back and then they traded, but they got back to normal. So
Oh yeah, absolutely, and definitely is very interesting. Maybe if you're able to save some money through that, who knows? Maybe that was the move. I don't know. But we also saw the 76ers acquire George Hill in a big 3-team deal with the Thunder and the Knicks. Man, what do you think about that?
For the Sixers, I like it. It's George Hill has been a consistent veteran. He's a guy that teams have made moves for to help kind of with their depth, and he was just the biggest name in this 3-team trade. The Thunder and Knicks being involved, so a few other pieces got moved too, but nothing really of note. But it's the biggest piece that George Hill goes to Sixers, help them with their run now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And 76ers are still sitting in the number 1 seed right now in the East, with the Brooklyn Nets very closely behind them. So, and the Nets also made a number of moves. So it's crazy. You're seeing all these teams really trying to make pushes towards the playoffs, or just pushes for the future. It's got hot there at the end.
One final note. This is also buyout season. So like after the trade deadline, players usually you'll see get bought out. LaMarcus Aldridge was bought out by the San Antonio Spurs, and there was a lot of questions about where he's going to go. He already decided he's also going to the Brooklyn Nets of all teams. So the Brooklyn Nets are now going to have Harden and Kyrie, Durant, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge.
Oh my goodness, this is going to be disgusting.
It's definitely the league of the haves and have-nots. So there's a few other big names that are kind of in the buyout market as well. We'll see kind of how those play out. But that was a big one that actually didn't have time to throw in, but definitely wanted to make a note because it just happened like within the last 24 hours.
Yeah, definitely a lot of moves, things that are happening. A lot of moving and shaking happening, man. So it's been real crazy, but there's a lot of moving and shaking too with all the great content platforms that you can find FinalScore on, which include a whole number of different options, including for your audio, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Podcasts, Player FM, Bullhorn, and Castbox, or you can find us in a video format on YouTube. But all you have to do is search keyword PCN FinalScore, one word, on any of those platforms, and go ahead and hit that like and follow button. That way you never miss out whenever we post new content. But you can also find all this and more on our hub at podcastcity.net/FinalScore and find all that great stuff there. But there's also been a lot of great stuff happening in the world of the NFL, as we ended up seeing probably a super surprising shakeup happen at the top of the draft order between the 49ers, the Dolphins, and the Eagles, as we ended up seeing the 49ers end up with the number 3 pick. You saw the Eagles slide all the way back to the 12th pick. Dolphins now moved to 6. It was pandemonium, man.
Yeah, this actually makes a lot more sense now because John Lynch was at Zach Wilson's pro day, a quarterback at BYU. So now, like, it was funny because as soon as this first trade happened, the Dolphins traded down to 12. I was like, oh man, okay, so Tua's going to be the guy. They're moving ahead, like that's going to be it. And then literally within the next hour, they turned around and traded 12 into the number 6 pick with the Eagles, and now they're back in the top 6. And I'm like, okay, so is Tua not the guy still? Like, we don't really know.
Well, another thing you got to look at, too, is with the Eagles, apparently there's reports saying they're not 100% sold on Jalen Hurts in the organization either. So apparently they just weren't able to pull off the 3 pick. So
I laugh so hard. Like, I understand the 49ers moving up. And I understand the Dolphins wanting to move back up into that 6th spot because you got Kyle Pitts, the tight end, that's supposedly going in that range. The top 2 wide receivers in this draft are supposedly going in that range too. So that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense to me why the Eagles would want to move backwards when that's the type of players that they want, that they need.
Well, apparently what it came down to from a lot of the research I've done is that the Eagles actually really wanted Zach Wilson as well, but we're not able to move all the way up into the top 3 to be able to possibly acquire him. So now, what the approach is, they still don't know what they're doing at quarterback, but now it looks like a a power by numbers type of approach, because as of right now, after this trade, the Eagles hold the most draft picks in the 2021 NFL draft with 11 picks. So with that, and it's not even like, oh, it's a lot of back end. No, they have pretty even picks all the way throughout and can honestly make a lot of moves. And that's the thing that people are going to have to watch out for, is the Eagles could end up in a position where if you see a guy like Zach Wilson or even maybe one of these other quarterbacks or players start sliding, the Eagles might be there to try and jump up and snatch someone up. So you could see the Eagles being one of those teams that are really going to be a big mover on draft day.
Absolutely. And looking at kind of, in my opinion, the biggest winner of this is the Dolphins, because
Yes.
they not only they have so much draft capital over the next like 2 to 3 years.
Oh yes.
It is absolutely mind-boggling. And it's crazy to me that Laramie Tunsil, who is considered like a like question mark of a draftee,
Mm-hmm.
they turned him into a ton of picks, like 4 first-round picks.
Yep.
I think that one trade with the Texans turned Laramie Tunsil eventually, after everything's said and done, into 4 first-round picks. I don't know if that's pure genius by the Dolphins or what, but that's crazy that a guy like him can be turned into 4 first-round picks.
So crazy.
But really, you've got Dolphins have 5 first-round picks over the next 3 years, with 4 second-round picks and 4 third-round picks. So that's 13
so
picks between the first 2 days of the draft, and they're already there's already a talented roster there. So like, now what does the Dolphins do at 6? They went out and got Will Fuller. So I mean, there's talking about adding one of those big wide receivers or Kyle Pitts that we mentioned.
Oh yeah.
They're doing a fantastic job in Miami. Like, the future is very bright for the 49ers. Now the big question is not who are they going to draft, but what are they going to do with Jimmy G? Because clearly, if you trade in the top 3 with this kind of a draft class at QB, you're taking one of those 3 QBs.
Yeah, you would imagine. And that's the thing, is that's why the Eagles are pushing so hard. And you could even see other crazier moves happen with Jimmy G that could involve any of these teams that were involved, especially the Eagles, if they're not sold on Jalen Hurts. So a lot of things could happen in a lot of different ways. But let's not forget, the Eagles also signed Joe Flacco to a one-year deal. So,
well, that's your QB1 right there. There's your starter.
Hello 4-win season. But
I laughed so hard at that signing, because not only is it the complete opposite skill set of Jalen Hurts, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Why would you want to get guys that have completely different skill sets for one offense? But it's also the fact that I think Joe Flacco made more money this year than he did last year on a 1-year deal. It's like he's got like $7.5 million this year, and he made like less last year, and he played terrible and was on a bad team, and he made more money. Like, it doesn't make sense. How is Joe Flacco still getting paid like that?
Maybe it's a veteran leadership thing. Maybe, I don't know. He wasn't too fond of Drew Lock, so I don't know. Maybe he thinks he can come in and just kind of push Jalen Hurts to the side. However, I have a feeling it's still probably going to be Jalen Hurts who's going to be the starter once we get through training camp. I think Joe Flacco is just going to be a guy being there as the veteran experience, the veteran, in the ear of the rookie kind of thing, So we'll see how it works out. But really, when you're seeing the Eagles right now and where they sit in this draft, that far back, you're not getting a quarterback. Not any of these big ones anyways. So unless something crazy happens, Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to be the guy going forward. So mark that, Eagles fans. It's probably what it's going to end up being. But this is just so crazy to see, even though we're still a little bit away from the draft, that you saw this huge of a trade get executed between 3 teams like this. You don't see it that often, usually unless it's on draft day. So pretty crazy to see this happen, man. It gets exciting, and definitely make sure to stay with Final Score. We definitely are going to be doing a lot when it comes to the NFL draft this year. Got a lot of plans in the works, so definitely keep your eyes on our social media and on all of our content when we make that announcement, because it will be coming. So definitely be prepared for that. But you can also check out all the great things from our parent network, Podcast City Network. What can you tell us about that, Craig?
Well, Final Score is a proud member of Podcast City Network. PCN has 21 independent podcast members across all genres of podcasting. You can find more about PCN on all social media platforms, on Facebook.com/Podcast City Network, Twitter @Podcast City Net, YouTube, search the keywords Podcast City Network, and of course on their website, podcastcity.net. Be creative, be independent, be yourself. Podcast City Network.
Absolutely. And if we're talking about being creative too, we got to talk a little bit about meme madness, because we definitely got some good ones lined up today. Not going to lie, I really enjoyed curating these ones, especially our first one, just because I love those time lapse kind of videos, where they always get those family videos. I see it a lot on TikTok now, where it's like, oh, we're going to recreate this picture, and there's the picture. Well, we're going to play a little game today, and we're going to look at Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2005 and Frank Gore in 2005. And then look at them both today. Now, you see Ryan Fitzpatrick went from that boyish, clean look to having that beautiful big beard, and now he's just the man that's going to be coming in to help the Washington football team. And then Frank Gore just, well, damn, he looks like Frank Gore.
He looks the same.
He looks exactly the same. Man, that dude doesn't age. Oh, man, it's good stuff. But, when you talk about people that are aging, you always naturally have to bring up Tom Brady. And sadly, Tom Brady is statistically closer in age to the average NFL player's parents than he is in age to the average NFL player. That just goes to show, man. Damn, Tom Brady, he old, but, hey, he still gets it done. So, and
ageless wonder. He's the GOAT.
And to put out there, because I don't think we listed this in the NFL moves, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have now re-signed every single starter that played in the Super Bowl. So every starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is now coming back. So watch out, guys.
They still have about $3 million, I think I saw on Twitter, to work with. So they might bring back Antonio Brown still.
They still might. And but the thing is that they were able to bring back Tom Brady. And if you don't know anything about Buccaneers franchise history at all, Tampa Bay has never been able to keep quarterbacks, because Tom Brady, always setting records somewhere, is the first Bucs quarterback to ever sign a second contract with the team since the franchise has been around since 1976. I actually had to doubt this because I watched the Bucs a lot in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I had to research this, and this is true. I was flabbergasted. This is absolutely true. So, hey, look at Tom Brady just setting franchise records with other teams now. Why not? Right? Oh, man. But you know what? There's other teams out there that are making some dumbheaded moves, big bonehead moves. At least I think it is, because we talked about last week a little bit about Andy Dalton making the move to Chicago. And I kind of felt like it was a joke. And I ended up coming across this where you have the prank guys that are telling the Chicago staff to sign Andy Dalton. And honestly, their reaction was about my reaction. So, you can't go wrong with it, man. It's funny stuff, but at least the hair matches some of the colors, right? So if you've missed what today is, though, today's March 28th, also known as 328, but it's also 328 day. Craig, why is 328 important?
Well, that's when the Patriots were down in Super Bowl 28-3 to the Falcons and came back and just decided that let's sweep the rug out from Falcons fans.
Oh, and the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history that also resulted in the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. And then the Patriots went on the next year to lose to the Eagles. So everything was right in the world. But yes, I'm so sorry, Atlanta fans, that we had to put this up. I'm sorry. It's March 28th. When are you ever going to be in a position that your show actually lands on March 28th? We got to play this joke. We're sorry, guys. Don't hate us. If you have hate mail, send it to pcnfinalscore@gmail.com. We love to hear your comments. So with that being said, that is meme madness. Definitely make sure that if you have any memes that you love or ones that you create, send them into the show. Again, you can send them into our email at pcnfinalscore@gmail.com, as well as all of our social media outlets at pcnfinalscore, and definitely find all the great stuff going on there. And post those memes, man. We love them. And if you post them on our page, 9 times out of 10, they're going to end up on the show, because I'm sorry, I love memes. It's a habit. It's an addiction. It's maybe a problem. I don't know. Anyways, but with that, we definitely got to talk about joining Podcast City Network and all the great things that Podcast City Network can offer an aspiring or new podcast, because they offer an array of membership services, including logo design and branding, social media advertising, and live podcast hosting, on top of so much more. And you also gain access to our network of shows to help with cross promotion, guest, overall reach, while also becoming a part of an ever expanding PCN community based on people helping people. And if you missed it, we already added another show announced this week, so definitely got to check it out. And the best part is no membership fees. So what are you waiting for? Go to podcastcity.net/join now and join the fastest growing independent podcast network around, Podcast City Network. Which, again, if you did miss the fact that we did add a new show, was it excuse me, let me English today. Not Your Average Podcast in the 716 is now part of Podcast City Network. So definitely make sure to go to podcastcity.net/Not Your Average Pod, and you can definitely find out a lot more about them. Man, that was a lot of mouthful of stuff to say. So at that point,
excited to have T and Mike join the network.
Yes.
Based out of Buffalo, New York. They talk Buffalo Bills football. They talk music and you know, a lot of fun stuff. We're happy to have them on board, and definitely a few others in the pipeline. So we've got some really cool things planned. So, you know, keep your eyes peeled.
Absolutely. So definitely make sure to keep eyes on that. But now it's time to switch gears over to the give or go, because, man, we got some good ones this week, I feel like, and we're going to hit it right off the top. I'm going to throw it right to you. There's going to be a potential boycott by Major League Baseball for the All-Star Game and the Masters after changes in Georgia voting law. Give or go?
We tossed this in here because I was like, I really don't really know how to respond to this. Like, we've seen this happen before when the 2017 NBA All-Star Game was relocated from Charlotte to New Orleans after the state of North Carolina passed a controversial measure that was reviewed as a LGBTQ plus law.
Mm-hmm.
Try saying that 5 times fast. But so what just happened here, and I had to look into this a little bit more because this didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The state of Georgia passed new regulations that is viewed to be as voter like suppression, but it's about basically making sure you can't get you have to have multiple forms of ID to register to vote. The drop locations for voting were limited. They kind of restricted a few of them, but it changed the voting laws that is apparently, again, this, I'm not going to dive too deep into politics because we don't do that kind of shit on this show.
That's right.
But this is supposed to be a suppression for like the African American community, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But there's talks now that Major League Baseball is going to move their All-Star Game from Atlanta, and there's even talks about the Masters being boycotted by players. Like, it's just crazy. Like, especially All-Star Game is one thing. You can move that to a different city, do what you gotta do. Like, but the golf world getting involved with this, and if the boycott goes on for the Masters is one of the biggest golf tournaments in golf. Like, if that gets boycotted or is, you know, moved or canceled for some reason, like, that is going to make major shockwaves in the sports world.
Absolutely.
But it's, I think sports get they're getting a little too deep into politics now. That's just my opinion. Like, I think sports you can acknowledge things. This is this is tough for me to dive into. Like,
I feel like with this kind of a situation, though, looking at it, because obviously we don't like to get political on the show, but at the end of the day, when it comes to being an athlete or something like that, I can understand where there might be a certain amount of limitations when it comes to involvement in politics that certain people want to see and stuff like that. But when you're a league or a franchise, I feel like gloves are off, because at the end of the day, you're the ones as the franchise of the league that has to contend with the local political officials, with the state officials, with the city officials, with everybody on every aspect of everything you do. So at the end of the day, when you're a business trying to also portray that all inclusivity and be able to show that it doesn't matter what kind of background or preference or whatever the case may be, you're someone that's going to be included, and things happen in a state where you have said franchises or teams. I mean, I always will feel that you're going to have an entity want to try and take some kind of position and a stance on it. Honestly, hats off to both of them for doing it, because if golf has always been one that's been notoriously bad when it comes to these kind of things, honestly. And you're seeing them even take a stance that means something. So I honestly, hats off to them. But at the same token, I do feel that, you are seeing a lot more crossover in sports and politics, but in these kind of situations, I mean, it's up to the league and to the franchises. Now, if there are players coming out wanting to be crazy about it and all this, yes, I understand your individual rights as a citizen to be able to voice your opinion, but really, unless you're living in Georgia, does it impact you? And that's the thing. But This will impact Major League Baseball. This could impact the PGA, and that's something they have to keep in mind. So I don't think this is just a PR move. I think this is a damage mitigation move, because it could hurt attendance for their events, and that's something you have to keep in mind as well. So who knows?
This is a tough subject to broach, because you've been seeing it happening more often over the last five years or so. Sports and politics are starting to intersect a lot more. So if you're state lawmakers, you have to be more conscious about what are the ripple effects that could happen here. Because if you look at it from that level, and if you're saying that, oh, well, it's this party is doing this because they want to suppress this group of demographic of people, the parties can't look at that stuff like that anymore. They have to think of what are the ripple effects that could happen here if we do this, and this demographic, does something about it. Now it can affect our revenue as a state, because that's what's going on. Like, if they move both of those events out of the state of Georgia, you could see some big ramifications financially by the state of Georgia.
And it'll also affect businesses as a whole too, especially when you talk about local economies. That's why you see bidding for the Super Bowl, bidding for WrestleMania and stuff like that, because the Olympics, because the amount of money they bring to local economies is insurmountable. Just for instance alone, the Super Bowl alone usually ends up pumping in excess of $1 million on a super minimum into any type of local economy they end up hosting a game in. WrestleMania has always been the same way. Like you said, the Olympics is one of the biggest ones. They usually end up pumping tens of millions into local economies. So it's crazy when you see the kind of economic impacts these kind of moves can make. But honestly, when you're trying to take a stance, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But when you talk about people that just got to do what they got to do, did you catch any of that UFC fight last night?
I watched most of the card. I did not watch the last fight. Wasn't the other half. My other half had to be up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock this morning, so we did not stay out late.
Well, friends, if you missed it, won the UFC heavyweight title via knockout, and in his post-match presser said that he is ready anytime, quote unquote, for John Jones. So new champ, not being shy, give her a go.
Yep. Well, this is really intriguing, because John Jones will be moving up a weight class.
Yep.
He'll be moving up to the heavyweight class, and this would be his debut fight in the heavyweight class. But Francis Ngannou won in the second round. I did see it was a knockout like early in the second round.
Only 1 minute in.
But I mean, but to his credit, I mean, he fought against Miocic, who is 20-4 now, and he's 38 years old, and he's been considered one of the best UFC heavyweights in history, just because of the four title defense wins that he's had, most in UFC history. He's got a really good pedigree, a little good track record. But time was due. It's no longer Miocic's time. It's Ngannou's time. I'm really excited to see what he can do because of how much bigger he is a knockout artist. And him versus John Jones is going to be one of the biggest one of the biggest pay-per-views in UFC in recent memory.
Yeah, most definitely. So definitely interesting. And now I'm getting invaded. You gotta love it. But anyways,
Hey, the
gotta
family's
love
getting
kids.
involved.
Oh yeah, you gotta love it. But no, man, I saw a little bit of the fight. It was Francis looked so relaxed in this fight, to the max, and he said that was his whole game plan: just stay relaxed, don't try and chase, try and do what he can. And you're seeing now he's able to go in like early in the second round, 52 seconds into the second round, gets the knockout, knocks him down with the left, and starts just beating his face in. Ref stops it, wins by knockout, and it was a really entertaining fight. But like I said, fighting champ, ready anytime for John Jones. Like you said, John Jones going up a weight class. I mean, it gets harder when you start moving up into those heavyweight classes and whatnot. Especially we're talking about the kind of weight you're gonna have to carry to be able to have the power to be able to fight these kind of guys. So it's gonna be interesting. I think maybe he's gonna probably have to rely a lot more on his speed and agility to be able to get around a guy like this, because this dude's a heavy freaking hitter. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how it works out. But you know what always works out? Good old Podchaser. What can you tell us about Podchaser, bud?
Well, Podchaser is your daily source for podcast discovery. Apple Podcasts is no longer the only credible place you can rate and review podcasts. On Podchaser, you can follow creators, browse every podcast ever, and you can rate and review individual episodes. We're also on Podchaser. You can find us, podchaser.com, and search keyword FinalScore, one word. Go ahead and give us a follow, a rating, and a review. Definitely helps go a long way. Podchaser, a great resource for podcasters of all genres. They got some really cool stuff going on there. So if you are a podcaster or into the podcasting world, check out podchaser.com.
Absolutely. Definitely make sure to check that out. That does bring us to the week ahead, which there is definitely a good amount of stuff going on, including MLB opening day, which will be Thursday, April 1st. That's right. The start of the Major League season is here. You excited, bud?
Yeah, and I know our fellow PCN Sports lineups, that the Nest podcast and Rick Griffin show, those guys very baseball heavy during baseball season. I know they've been talking a lot, doing a lot of previews over on their shows over the last month or so. So a lot of fun. Really excited to watching some baseball again, and more so, baseball is going to have some fans.
Yeah,
that's gonna be good.
Oh, I can't wait, man. It's going to be absolutely amazing. But also don't forget that we have the continuation of the bracket challenge as well that I want to squeeze in real quick. Definitely make sure to keep your eyes glued if you entered, because we are getting near the end and championship games will be coming up not too much longer. So definitely keep your eyes peeled on that. But also, like you had mentioned, the PCN Sports lineup of Not a Hockey Market podcast, the Nest podcast, the Rip Griffin show, and of course, Fixed Edge, and it's so much great stuff that we have going on there now, and always some new stuff happening. So a lot of great shows, man.
And Not Your Average podcast in the 716.
That's right.
That's one
Can't
that we also recently added this week. All of those podcasts, you can find those on Podcast City Network's website as well. Definitely a growing contingent of sports that we have on the network. It's a lot of fun. We got some great stuff planned with them, so be on the lookout.
Absolutely. But also make sure to keep your eyes glued to our social media at PCN Final Score all throughout this next week in the lead up to episode 100. That's right. The countdown is almost over. And next Sunday, April 4th, 10 a.m. here live on Facebook Live, we will be having our 100th episode. And there will be all kinds of new changes and things happening, huge surprises, maybe even some giveaways. Who knows? Just stay tuned and find out. All you have to do, follow us on social media at PCN Final Score. Man, so much great stuff. You excited?
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I know a few of the things we got planned, so it's gonna be a great show. We're really looking forward to it, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely going to be really, really awesome. But we thank you guys so much for watching and joining us today. Always love your support. We thank you guys so much for helping us push Final Score to where it is now. And now we're getting ready to celebrate our 100th episode. That's been like 2.5 years in the making. So really awesome to finally get to this point. Whoever would have thought. But before we can get to next week, though, there's going to be a lot of stuff announced. So again, make sure to follow us at PCN Final Score so you don't miss out. But until next week, I'm Chris, and that's Craig. and you guys that just watched Final Score, y'all have a great night.